We have Nancy in Fullerton, who's been a part of our church for 3 years. She says, I recently went to the La Brea tar pits with some friends, and I have a hard time understanding how bones can be millions of years old, and it seems obvious that the bones are real. But in biblical timeline, I'm not sure how to explain this to others. How is it all of God?
Yeah. So when we come to the age of the earth, and we've talked about this before, I think it was a 4-year-old who wanted to know. It's amazing to me that out of the mouth of babes, we have questions that I admit are heavy. So science claims the earth is 4.5 billion years old, and the universe is 13.8 billion years old. At least that's what numbers I got. Bishop Ussher, years and years ago, based on the genealogies, claimed that the earth was only 6,000 years old. And so herein we lie this conundrum of, well, it can't be both. It can't be 6,000 years old, but it's really billions of years old. And so Christians have come up with various answers to try to harmonize those issues. One that I thoroughly reject is called theistic evolution, which says, the whole world began with a Big Bang and evolution, which is what science teaches, but God created the Big Bang and used evolution. The problem with that is, of course, that runs into conflict with the way the book of Genesis describes it. So they say, well, that was just poetic, it wasn't real, and Adam and Eve aren't real people, they were just kind of storytelling. Another view is what's called the age-day theory, and that is that since a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, the creation of this universe and world happened over a period of days, but they say, well, we didn't even have 24-hour days because the sun wasn't even created on the first 3 days. It didn't show up till the fourth, so who knows how long those days were. And so they say, even though it reads kind of like morning and evening in one day, and so it seems like he's saying it was 24 hours, but that's just, the day with the Lord is different, so who knows how long. Another is that there are significant gaps in the genealogies that we just don't know how long man has been on this earth, although it's hard to imagine since some of those genealogies go right back to Adam, like the genealogy of Jesus, that there's that big of gaps. Another one is known as the gap theory, and this is a view that says in between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2 is an unknown amount of time that may be billions of years. And it goes like this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And verse 2 should read, and the earth became formless and void. And the reason that that's changed is because the Hebrew word was, translated in most translations, the earth was, can be translated became. It is a legitimate translation of the word. If you change that word to became, what they say is God created the heavens and the earth at some point, unknown when, and something happened that it became. And the reason they say it wasn't created that way is later in the Bible, it specifically says God did not create an earth that was formless and void. It wasn't that way. So since it seems to say God didn't make an earth that was formless and void, then was isn't the right word, became. And therein lies what happens. The fall of Satan happens, the destruction of the world and the previous creation of God sometime in ancient history, billions of years, consistent maybe with what we understand from science. And then what you have in the book of Genesis is the recreation of the world. And there's other reasons they take this view. I don't hold it, but I'm going to tell you some of the arguments for it. It's when God created the world, in verse 1, a certain word is used in Hebrew that speaks of the initial creation out of nothing. The other words that are used after that are of reshaping the things that were already made. So they feel that there's a lot of evidence in the Bible that support a legitimate translation that would allow for a ton of time. It's just that the book of Genesis is not telling us the very beginning of the creation of all things. We do know Satan already existed. I mean, he shows up in the garden. We're not told anything in Genesis about when he was created or his fall. So we know that at least Genesis doesn't record the beginning of every created being because we're not told about the creation of the devil. So there is the possibility that the Bible's not intending in the book of Genesis to take us back to the very beginning of the creation of everything. Others would say, nope, he created the devil. It isn't mentioned here, but it must have happened that first week of the creation and the fall of Satan. It all happened kind of early on. So you got some issues the Bible doesn't resolve. I will simply leave it with this, that the best explanation I hold as part of the answer, if not the whole answer, is that when God creates, he creates things with age built in. When he made man, he did not make an embryo. He did not make a baby in the crib. He made an adult man. If you walked in the day after Adam was created by God, would you say, this guy is 1 day old? Or would you say, no, he's probably, 25 or 30. Well, I don't know how old he was. In appearance, if you could carbon date him, he'd had age built in. How do I know that? When Jesus made water into wine.
Yeah.
Was the wine cheap? Thunderbird or Ripple or whatever they used to, the cheap wine that you can make right now? Or was it aged wine? Well, we know from the text, it was the good wine. It was the aged wine.
Yeah.
So if Jesus made wine and you were to date it, you'd have put a date. The age was built in. And my point is, age was built. The old question, what came first, the chicken or the egg, is answered in the Bible. The chicken came first. He made adult chickens, and they had baby eggs. Not eggs that became chickens, but chickens that produce eggs. Built in. Therefore, I suggest that based on what we read in the book of Genesis, God's pattern of creation is to have age built into what he made. You say billions of years? Light coming from distant stars that we can see that is billions of years old? All I know is it's his pattern to put age in that is, it's real age. I mean, if you tested the wine, it's there, but it's the appearance of age.
Wow.
And therefore, I would simply suggest that the reconciling of what science tells us and what God says, there is a way to reconcile it. That to me is part of that solution, if not the major part of it. But the Bible doesn't intend to tell us. It never says, and the date was. It's not arguing for the date of the earth. It's telling us about God's creation. And we accept it, though we can't harmonize every bit of it to people's desires with science. One last thing I'll say is this. When people get excited about science, like, well, that's true. Well, it's true today, but science is going to change its opinion about what is true.
It's so true. That is so true. It's a pursuit of truth.
We are finding the universe is expanding, and they're trying to figure out the rate of expansion, and it's not making sense to our own understanding of it. So it's like there are those who believe that the amount of time that we think this universe has been here and the billions of years, the light, that may be completely off because of our presuppositions about the expansion of the universe. This is brand new cutting edge science that we're discovering is throwing a lot of our theories into jeopardy. So I would say I'm going to stick with the Word of God, which never has changed since God wrote it, but man's science and opinion continuously changes.
It's so true.
So we'll wait till all the evidence is in. I'm not worried how it comes out.
Thank you for watching this clip from Ask Pastor Bob. If you want to see full episodes and more from our church, please subscribe to our channel. God bless you. Have a great day.